someone attacks you. Maybe it's a coworker. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's a stranger online. They criticize you. They blame you. They challenge you. And immediately something inside you starts burning. You want to respond. You want to set the record straight. You want to prove them wrong. That feeling, that urge, that's exactly where your power starts leaking. Because here's the truth that most people never figure out. The moment you open your mouth to explain yourself, you have already lost. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never look at silence the same way again. Think about the last argument you got pulled into. Were you really trying to find the truth, or were you just trying to win? Here's what psychology tells us. Most conflicts are not intellectual exchanges. They are emotional performances. People aren't arguing to change their mind. They are arguing to protect their ego. They need to feel right. They need to feel powerful. And the only way they get that feeling is if you play along. The moment you respond, you give them exactly what they want: your attention, your energy, your emotion. Proof that they matter to you. And here's what makes this worse. This reflex to argue, defend, and explain, it wasn't born in you, it was built. Psychologists trace it all the way back to childhood. When you were young, authority figures held the power to judge you. Parents, teachers, adults in charge. You quickly learned that your safety, your sense of being okay, depended on convincing these people that you were good, that you were right, that you had a reason. So you explained, you justified, you defended, and it worked back then. But you are not a child anymore. Most people never realize that. They carry that old survival reflex into adult life, and it costs them dearly. Every time you explain yourself to someone who wasn't asking for clarity, you are still that child in the principal's office, begging to be understood. Real power doesn't beg. Let's talk about something called the frame. In every interaction, every conversation, every confrontation, someone controls the frame. The frame is simple. It's the invisible rule book of who's in charge. Whoever controls the frame controls the outcome. Now here's where most people destroy themselves without even knowing it. The moment you defend yourself, you step into someone else's frame. You are saying without words, you are the judge, I am the defendant, please listen to my case. You handed them the gavel. You sat down in the witness stand. And now they have all the power. Even if you win, even if every word you say is 100% correct, you still look weak, because you accepted their authority to judge you in the first place. Here is what makes it even worse. Your own brain betrays you in these moments. When someone accuses you or attacks you, your body releases cortisol, the stress hormone. Your heart rate spikes. Your mind screams, defend yourself, clarify, fight back. And if you listen to that urge, you hand them your throat. Perception is everything in the social world. People don't see your logic, they see your reaction. And a man who rushes to explain himself looks guilty, even when he is innocent. Here's the hard truth about arguments. You cannot win them, not because you are not smart enough, not because you don't have the facts, but because the other person is not listening for facts. They are listening for the moment they can speak again. Highly intelligent people figured this out a long time ago. They don't stay silent in arguments because they have nothing to say. They stay silent because they have learned that most arguments are not about finding the truth. They are about feeding the ego. Think about it. When was the last time someone completely changed their mind mid-argument because of your words? Rarely. Almost never. What actually happens is this. You give them your energy. You show your emotions. You reveal what makes you angry. You reveal what makes you insecure. And they file all of that away. Now they know exactly which buttons to push next time. Engaging in an argument is like handing a stranger the map to your weaknesses and saying, here, use this whenever you want. There is another thing people forget. You can win an argument and still lose the power. You can be 100% right, prove every point, and leave the conversation looking like the aggressor. Meanwhile, the other person looks calm and composed. Who do people respect more in that moment? The quiet one. Arguing pulls you down to their level, and at their level, they are more comfortable than you are. Don't play the game. The fastest way to win is to refuse to play. The man who defends himself, lowers himself. The man who doesn't forces the world to defend him instead. Read that again. When you defend yourself, you do three very dangerous things. First, you confirm that the attack landed. Think about it. If someone throws a stone at a wall and the wall cracks, everyone knows the stone hit hard. But if the wall doesn't move, if nothing changes, what does that tell you about the wall? The same applies to you. When you rush to defend yourself against an accusation, you signal to everyone watching that the accusation found a target, that it touched something real, that it hurt. And once people know something can hurt you, they own you. Second, you reveal your vulnerabilities. Every defense you give is a map of what you care about. Every explanation reveals what you are afraid of losing. Your reputation, your image, your self-worth. The moment you start defending, you expose exactly which buttons to push. If you defend, you reveal your values. You reveal what hurts you. You reveal your buttons. A smart opponent will never forget that. Third, you exhaust yourself chasing approval. Defending yourself is at its core begging. It is saying, please, see me the way I see myself. But here's the cold reality. People who attack you rarely want to understand you. They want a reaction. They want to feel powerful. And the more you defend, the more you feed that hunger. The strongest people don't defend. They let their existence speak for itself. When you no longer defend yourself, people stop treating you like someone to be put on trial. Here is one of the most liberating truths you will ever hear. You do not owe anyone an explanation for your choices. Not for how you live. Not for what you believe. Not for the path you are walking. And yet, most people spend enormous amounts of energy justifying themselves. To friends, to family, to strangers on the internet, even to people who never asked. Why? Because they are seeking approval. They are looking for validation. They need someone else's permission to feel okay about their own decisions. And that need, that desperate need to be understood, is one of the greatest power leaks a human being can have. Every explanation you give is not just information. It is leverage. It is a weakness handed over voluntarily. It is you saying, here is what I value. Here is what I am insecure about. Here is where you can push me. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius didn't justify himself to Rome. He acted, he moved, he built. He let his actions speak in a language that needed no translation. True power doesn't explain itself. Think about the most powerful, most respected people you know or have observed. Do they constantly justify their choices? Do they rush to explain their decisions to people who didn't approve? No, they are clear within themselves. And that inner clarity is visible from the outside. It radiates, it commands. Needing to explain yourself is a signal that you are still seeking permission from others to be yourself. Stop asking for that permission. It was never theirs to give. Now, let's talk about the most underestimated force in human interaction: silence. Most people think silence is a gap, an absence, a nothing. They are wrong. Silence is the most aggressive move you can make. When someone attacks you and you say nothing, you do not just avoid losing, you actively win. Here is what happens inside the attacker's mind when they get silence instead of a reaction. First, they expected resistance. They had their next argument ready. They were prepared to push back against your pushback, but you gave them nothing to push against. And now they are standing alone, holding their aggression with nowhere to put it. The game stops, the power shifts, and suddenly, they are the ones who look foolish. Silence communicates something that words never can: complete indifference. And complete indifference is more devastating than any insult. Think about it. What hurts more, being argued with or being completely ignored? Being yelled at or being met with a calm, steady gaze that says, this doesn't even register on my radar? Silence is a dark mirror. When people look into it during a conflict, they only see their own aggression reflected back at them. It makes them uncomfortable. It makes them doubt themselves. It makes them small. When you don't react, they get uncomfortable. They start doubting their own words. Their power shrinks while yours expands. There is also the psychology of the vacuum. The human brain is terrified of silence during a conflict. We are wired to expect a response. When that response doesn't come, the brain panics. It starts filling the void with imagination, with fear, with self-doubt. And here is the beautiful part. He who remains silent forces others to fill in the blanks, and they almost always overestimate him. Your silence becomes a kind of myth, an aura, a force that people sense but cannot quite explain. And science backs this up. Research by emotional intelligence expert Daniel Goleman found that a simple 10-second pause during a conflict can reduce damaging reactions by as much as 70%. 10 seconds. That's all it takes to interrupt the chemical response in your brain and choose power over impulse. Silence is not passive. Silence is the highest form of self-control. And self-control, in a world full of people screaming, is the rarest and most respected power there is. Knowing this is one thing, doing it is another. Your body will still feel the urge to react. Your brain will still release that cortisol spike. So here is how you start building the silence muscle. Step 1, the 10-second rule. Every time you feel the urge to defend, argue, or explain, pause, count to 10 internally. Do not speak, just breathe. You do not have to respond immediately. You do not have to respond at all. In those 10 seconds, the cortisol drops, your clarity returns, and you can choose your next move from a place of strength, not panic. Step 2, the 7-day no defense challenge. For 7 days, make one rule. No matter what happens, no matter how small the accusation, how unfair the criticism, do not explain yourself. Not once. This is not a real experiment. It is a rewiring. It breaks the automatic reflex, and in 7 days, most people feel something shift. A quiet confidence begins to build. Step 3. Speak only when it shifts power. This is the advanced level. When you do choose to speak, make sure it is a move, not a response. Ask yourself, does saying this give me more power? Or does it just make me feel better for a moment? Those are two completely different things. Venting feels good, but it costs you. A short, composed statement carries infinitely more weight than a long, desperate explanation. I think you already know the answer to that. I'm not going to engage with this. My actions will speak for me. These are not defenses. These are statements of authority. Step 4. Work on inner acceptance. Here is the deepest layer. The reason attacks hurt is because they touch wounds that are already there. They activate insecurities that already exist inside you. Someone calls you stupid, and it hurts because some part of you fears they might be right. You cannot shame a man who has already accepted himself. This is the ultimate defense, not a verbal technique, not a strategy, but a complete honest acceptance of who you are, flaws and all. When you are at peace with yourself, truly at peace, other people's words lose their teeth. They become just noise. Here is what starts happening when you master this. People notice, not because you announce it, not because you tell them you've changed, but because your energy shifts. And energy is something people feel before they can name it. When you stop arguing, people stop seeing you as someone to toy with. When you stop defending, people stop challenging you as sport. When you stop explaining, people stop expecting you to justify your existence. And then something remarkable happens. You become unreadable. And the unreadable are feared, not because they are aggressive, not because they are dangerous, but because no one knows what is behind the silence. And the human mind, when it doesn't know, defaults to overestimating. Your words start carrying more weight because you use fewer of them. When a quiet person finally speaks, the whole room listens. You stop being the defendant in everyone's courtroom, and you start becoming the judge, not because you gained more power, but because you stopped giving yours away. Here is the final truth. Every time you argue, you give someone your energy. Every time you defend, you give someone your dignity. Every time you explain, you give someone your power. And silence takes it all back. Not the silence of someone who has nothing to say, but the silence of someone who knows their worth is not up for debate. There is a quote that says it perfectly. True power doesn't need an audience. You don't need their understanding. You don't need their approval. You don't need them to see your side. What you need is to know your own side so deeply, so clearly, so unshakably, that nothing they say can move you. That is where silence lives. That is where power lives. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their storm, don't argue, don't defend, don't explain. Just stand still and let the silence speak. Because silence is not the absence of strength. Silence is strength itself. If this video hit something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe. There is more coming, and it is going to change how you move through this world.